helping you troubleshoot your audio problem by talking to you
Yeah, no,
through the thing you couldn't
the audio
hear. So
guy
that
did.
was not going to be work.
It was strange how it just went out, because before it was working fine and it just stopped, but we're good now.
All right,
All right.
we're streaming live, and Leah, would you like to start us off?
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call. Anne.
Present.
Excellent. Steve.
I am here.
Mike.
Yeah.
Chris.
Here.
Heather.
Here.
Adam.
Here.
We are all here. I am here.
And then we have Ted Johnson and Jeff Went. Mary Jane Trait just know that she was not going to be able to make it tonight. So would you like to roll into the approval of minutes? We do have two this evening, the January 9th, 2020 and May 21st, 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th?
I'll move to approve the January 9th. Heather Ryan moved to approve the January 9th, 2020 minutes.
Mike Basil second.
Okay. Any questions or discussion about this particular set of minutes? Okay, then we don't need a roll call vote for this, right? All in favor of approving the minutes from January 9th? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, then approval of minutes is complete. We're going to move to item 3. Would anybody like to move to approve the minutes from May 21st, 2020?
So Heather Ryan moved to approve the May 21, 2020 meeting minutes.
Great. Do I hear a second?
Ann Beyer will second.
Excellent. Anybody want to discuss anything here?
I got a question.
I'll abstain from the vote because I was not at the meeting.
Excellent.
Same here. I was not
Steve,
present,
did you
so I
have
will
a,
abstain.
oh,
I have a question about Frank
Sorry,
and
Adam.
Scott's when they were here. I see that we kind of, I guess it seems like it's kind of open-ended. Like I know what in the meeting I thought we were kind of discussing like we were going to get some information back. And it's kind of left open-ended here as in review and investigate, and kind of ended up with no timeline, which I thought we were looking for kind of some, like I don't want to say answers, but some more information on it at this meeting. And I see the way it's written, it's kind of like open-ended as in with no timeline or anything.
We did not establish a timeline.
maybe we can add to the next agenda a discussion of a timeline, since we're not really discussing that today.
I can add that to the agenda for the next one.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's
Okay.
about timeline.
Yeah, and then one of the things that's in the minutes here too was that we had discussed receiving instructions for a self-guided tour prior to this meeting. And it says right here that we talked, I remember specifically talking about that as part of the change to make this meeting not a tour, was that we would do a self-guided tour with some support from the feedback from Jeff about parks that needed a little extra attention potentially in the future. So that's just another follow-up item that I don't think I received anything about.
We're doing a virtual tour. It's in for tonight.
Virtual, not self-guided, right?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I did a virtual tour, and then so that way, weather conditions and renting a bus.
Okay. Cool.
So we had Jeff generously took pictures for us, and we put a presentation together.
Cool. I was still thinking we were going to go for a walk of some kind, but that's fine. Okay, cool. Anything else about the minutes? Okay,
Okay,
then
well, I guess one other thing was the park, the two parks. I think one was at Amazon. I know we were kind of looking for help, and I thought, I'm trying to read this again, but I thought we had kind of said, well, if we could get some information on it and what you were looking for, as in for help with this, these two parks, and trying to get the ball rolling to get some resident input. But I don't remember ever receiving an email with the kind of that information on what we'd be looking for.
Sure. Well, my understanding was our discussion was I had asked people if they'd be interested in helping, and then when we start moving forward, I would be contacting those individuals that see if they can help.
I thought we had asked for some kind of a guidelines on what we were actually looking for, as in from all of us, as in, okay, as in for help, or what it would entail, so we could look at it to see if it fit any of our schedules or anything.
We are still trying to work on the polo participation plans, but those dates are not set.
Okay.
so we're just not there yet. Okay, all in favor of passing these minutes as they are written, say aye.
Guzikowski abstain.
Should it be with the revisions, like the timeline being added, or is that just going to be added to a new
I
agenda?
don't know if that's a minute thing as much as it's a request for a future
Okay.
agenda.
Sure, and I can definitely add that to the next agenda as well.
I just don't remember leaving that meeting with it being open-ended, because that seems odd that we would have left it open-ended. I mean, I can't say either way. I don't really remember the whole thing, but open-ended means just, a year or two versus, okay, well, let's try to get the ball rolling and get some answers or, I mean, because we're not talking huge dollars or anything like that, just to try to get the ball rolling on that, because it's, the year is going by fast, and if it's something we look at, it'd be definitely something we'd like to do probably next year. So that's,
As we discussed in that meeting, though,
it'd be nice to get the ball rolling.
it wasn't just the dollar amount that was the issue, is that we're trying to allow league type play in neighborhoods. And so that requires to reach out to the aldermans and to the public nearby to see if they were even interested in it as well. So it does take a little more time than just looking at the dollars and cents of putting up a fence and peg.
We can, let's put a discussion about timeline that's reasonable for this.
That sounds good. Oh, Leah, you're breaking up.
So Adam, you said you were also planning to abstain, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so then of those that are participating in the vote, can I hear and I pass the minutes for May 21st,
Aye for me.
2020?
Aye.
I from Mike.
Aye.
And I for myself. Okay, those pass. Fantastic. Next item on the agenda, moving to new business, part A, guest speaker, Andrew Vickers, City Administrator. Thank you for being here, Andrew.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I appreciate everything you do. I know it's an interesting year so far, to say the least. So happy to be here with you. Sorry, I'm a little casual. I'm in a white T-shirt, and I may or may not be wearing any pants. So we'll
Just keep the camera above the waist, please.
And this, just in case you're wondering, this is a Diet Coke. So
Hey, this
Not
is
the Rocky
Parks. We
Mountains.
don't mess around here.
that'll be after. So I wanted to had the opportunity for the school board to kind of talk on a very conceptual level, as well as the council talk at a very conceptual level on this proposal. I wanted to talk to the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Commission and the dialogue with you and get some input from you at these very early stages as this comes together. But by way of background, I think we're all aware that Mary Jane will be retiring at the end of this month. So we wish Mary Jane the best in her retirement. It's been a long career with, I can't even remember how many years, but it's high 20s if I remember correctly. So it's a long record of service for her, and we wish her well. But with that retirement, we we have an opportunity, as we would really with any function when you have a significant change in leadership or otherwise. We have a really good opportunity to take a look at this service, the recreation services that we provide the community, and take a look and see, is there a better way to do things? If we were to build it tomorrow, would we build it the same way it was built yesterday, or would we want to do something different? And in addition to kind of on the surface making a little bit of sense, we have in our city strategic action plan, as it was provided in the report for you, a couple of objectives. One of them under our inspired, aligned, and proactive city leadership critical success factor is convene discussions and examine partnerships with other stakeholders regarding shared services, cooperative programming, and alignment of resources, with a specific objective to establish a shared services implementation plan with the Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District. So I received those marching orders back in 2017 of where there are opportunities, please, as an administrative staff, explore those. So we talked to the school district about a range of things over the years. Obviously, we have a cooperative agreement in place right now for, some sort of public works functions, city/school parks. I know you those parks. We talked about the shared health clinic concept. We talked about a range of things. But myself and Andy Cromie have talked about this for a few months, kind of leading up to Mary Jane's announcement. We weren't really sure when that was. And we think a joint recreation platform in the community has a lot of merit. And what I put together in the packet is a thought primer, as we called it, which was the city's shot at putting forward a brainstorming and some input from our mayor and aldermen, a brainstorming of things that we would have assumed that stakeholders in our community, whether that be the council, the mayor, or the residents, would continue to want to see if we were to move to a joint recreation platform. We put together a list of things. We'll go through a few of the high points, but I put together a list selfishly. Here's what the city wants out of this. And the Heather and Andy at the school district were like, hey, we're cool with about 98% of this already. So although I did that kind of in a silo, we were on the same plane of thought, headed into this, how this might work. Just to hit on a few of those key points, and then really I'll kind of preview what's forthcoming, and then turn it over to you guys for questions and suggestions. But one critical point of this is we will fashion this as a partnership. We are not, and it will be jointly branded. It will be acknowledged that the city and the school district are supplying these services to the community, to the residents of this community. We did not want to turn over and divest the city's interest in whether it be financial or in the decision-making process, at least to advise the school district what programming we should do, shouldn't do, what we want to try, what's too expensive, what's just not worth it anymore, or whatever else we would dream up, policy items, fees, those types of things. So that's really important, that this is going to be a joint partnership. It's not one providing another in an exchange of money. I think that's very critical to the discussion here. Another big item that we discussed is where the school district has usually obviously focused in on their school-aged population. The city's recreation programming has had a wider focus of yes, school-aged programming, but also pre-kindergarten, toddler to adult to senior programming. Obviously, you can't have a community recreation platform, whether joint or otherwise, if all ages are not served and have an opportunity to grow, whether that be physically, socially, recreationally, etc. So we both understood coming into this that a joint platform would have to span the ages of the constituency here in Oak Creek. Really critical. And I think an offshoot of that is while it's a joint education and recreation platform, the city is coming into this saying and acknowledging that educational outlets, social, like your summer school programming that we do and the school district does, great socially, great educationally. We can't lose the fact that we also need to provide that physical recreation in the community. So we didn't want that to get lost in the larger goals of the joint platform as well. Of course, the school district would need to, as we're looking at our new, what do we call it here? Our new population to serve would also have to include not only the residents in the body corporate of the city of Oak Creek, but also the few folks that live in Franklin that also are in the school district. So one of the other things we are going to try to do as we can is really find a new home. If we move forward with this, really find a home for those folks that are regular part-time folks in our recreation department right now. Obviously, during any sort of a transition, if we get to that piece, they're going to be critical to Heather and her team in that transition. But even after that, there's a couple clerical folks and a youth sports coordinator and a senior programming coordinator. Again, part-time, not benefited employees. So there's a little bit more ease to probably take that on in the joint model. Really want to try to find a home for them. Now, obviously, some folks aren't going to be comfortable with the change, and it may not work out that we can retain everybody, but that's kind of our goal heading into it. Of course, we would not be replacing our recreation manager. So that is a lot of where the city's savings would come in on that end of it, selfishly. So with that, Heather, I'd like to give you an opportunity, Leah, if you don't mind, if Heather also provides a little bit of flavor for our discussions, maybe if I missed anything big, Heather, heading into this, or maybe painting your own vision of how this thing looks.
Right. So, Andrew, you picked up on the major points that we'd kind of been on the same page with this for quite a while, and the neighboring communities have this as their format for many years. So we're kind of following in place with what Franklin offers, with South Milwaukee offers, Cudahy. Milwaukee Public Schools provide the Milwaukee Rec program as well. So we have a lot of colleagues in the area that are acting similarly. So it's not like we're some renegades. I think that when the school district and the city formed their lines, they just, it kind of evolved in different ways. And we're in a position that we've got some facilities right now that would be great to be able to utilize, and the city needs some of those facilities anyway. So that's how it started, with just looking at school age programming, and now it's just evolved to include, the lifespan of community residents. And so we're in a position to be able to do that, and it makes sense. Like, we want to be seen as the folks that offer educational opportunities for all people in the community and recreational opportunities for people, both on our facilities and city facilities. Like, city facilities would continue to be used for t-ball and soccer and cricket and other things that we have at Abendschein and over at Kickers and other places. So I don't think that the residents, I'm hoping, don't feel a huge transition. They feel that it's expanded for them, rather than, hey, we only work for school age kids. It's for everybody.
If I could jump onto a couple of those points, because I think it's really of particular interest to this group. There is a pretty strict line here between the joint recreation program and the parks. We will continue to utilize the parks for as an outlet, obviously, as a facility for our recreational programming, but the city, this group, would still retain the renting out of the facilities, the revenue from the renting of all of the park facilities. We are not also in this scenario turning over any sort of administration or oversight over the city park. So I think that's critical. Just to underscore another point you made, Heather, this is not unique. I think I said in the meeting the other night, this wasn't Andrew's bright idea of the month. This is very, very common in southeastern Wisconsin, to where the school district is. Definitely the school districts and the cities are more integrated in their offering, but more and more the school district is the preeminent agent or authority that is taking that on. I think that's been a growing trend for many years, if not going on a couple decades now, but very, very prevalent in the southeast part of the state here where we are. And there was one other point that's escaping me right now, but I guess we can turn it over to the group here and have some discussion on this, see what you think about it so far.
Thank you so much, Andrew. One question I have right off the bat is there's a call out about a July 7th Common Council meeting where this will be discussed. So that was just a couple days ago. Was this? I'm not keeping up with the Common Council meetings. So maybe you could, you or Chris even might like to give us a summary of how this discussion went and sounded. Were there any key concerns that were brought up or questions that kind of became topics in that discussion?
You want me to take a shot at that, Chris, or do you want to? Okay, I think you pointed at me.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it was very well received. Obviously, I had communicated this out beforehand and asked for any any real red flags or roadblocks or any real concerns that folks had. We also had the opportunity a couple weeks ago, and I may have mentioned this at the beginning, but we met with School Board President Carini, Alderman Guzikowski representing this commission, the alderman on the commission, Heather, Andy Cromie, myself, our management intern, and Mayor Dan, and really just said, is this a solid enough concept to where we think we can go public and get more input? What we sought from the council was, in the end of it, and then I'll give you their specific input. At the end of it was, do you want us to spend some more work to give you an actual proposal that the school board and the city can actually act on? Or do you want us to go and figure out our own recreation programming in succession, past Mary Jane's retirement? And the thought was, go forward. We want to learn more. I don't know that there was it wasn't a not endorsement. They were very positive about it, but of course this is just an outline. We have to get further detailed how this is going to work. One of the big things that was mentioned was affordability. And I think it was Alderman Lorek mentioned that he thought there was a bit of a difference in price between what recreation fees for certain maybe like programs that the city put on versus what the school district was maybe charging. And we want to be sure that we maintain that affordability, because that's obviously a tenet of the city's recreation platform right now, to be affordable and inclusive. And I think we'll get there with the school district, but that was the big one. Excuse me, we spent an hour on a conditional use permit for like a 2,000 square foot building, and then we spent 10 minutes on this. So I think it was just, we really want to learn more. We're eager. I've heard comments that I think this is a logical move. I don't know why this didn't happen already. And I should say, if you were defining what the problem is, I would say that, not necessarily a problem, I would say that the school district has done an amazing job the last several years of building their youth programs, and maybe they've outpaced the city's youth programming. And we were really in a competitive nature, competing with sometimes similar programming for the same kid. I used an analogy of, do we really need 2 babysitting classes? Do we really need a summer camp that the school district puts on for amphibians and a summer camp that the city puts on for reptiles? Or can we do that a little bit more effectively? So, I don't think there's a problem. I just think this can be done much better and much more efficiently because we share, I mean, let's face it, we share the same taxpayer.
Mhm.
So the ultimate goal is to have a much better recreation platform, period. I think that's all ages. I think that's the goal. Chris, did I miss anything, or maybe you have your own input?
No, you nailed it. And I would just say that the big thing for what I was hearing from the alderman too is that the affordability, number one, and number two, it really is the timing is right because it just with Mary Jane retiring, you know, again, do we just sit on our hands and continue looking backwards, or do you make you know, forward you know, motion on this project and come to grips with the fact that it's time to do it right and work with the school district and the school board. So that's the plan.
One of the, just quickly again, one of the disadvantages, of course, the city has is we don't really have quality facilities of our own. And part of our partnership the last years, of course, was utilizing the school district facility as well. You know, I mean, if you look at where we are right now as a turning point in the city, agnostic of school district or city bodies, you know, we as a community invested $60 million in our facilities in this community. And I don't think that the city, on the heels of that, is going to invest several $1 million in a recreation facility as well. So I think that, you know, kind of, you know, I think in a lot of ways, the city would be playing catch up, to be honest. And it would be, I think, just much wiser to combine forces and resources moving forward. And that's really the principle behind this whole thing.
I'll say just as a member of the school board and being, you know, there for the primary discussion of the school board on this topic, it was also just a very, you know, well received idea. And I think overall, Andy Cromie did a really nice job sort of laying out the administrative perspective. Heather was on the line, and right, weren't you? You were on the line. You said a couple of things there about it, about your role, and we in terms of like it's an added workload that fold into what you're already doing and things like that. I know personal that came on, but you know, I was also sort of about this and I had a board meeting, so that was surprising. But I'm super excited about it, and if there's, you know, just thank you for having the idea and working to put it together. Do we have any kind of loose timeline? I'm not looking for like a hard date, but like, is there a structure around building out this plan further?
So Heather, you can jump in or I can
Right.
take that. You know, we have a really, as you guys know, we're in a really interesting year. What I had told the record, by the way, just for the record, I hope you guys would have thought I would have done this already. I have, before anything went to the school board or the council, I sat down with all of the recreation staff and kind of laid out that we were thinking about this and that you're going to be hearing about this and here's what it is and here's what it isn't. So we did that first, of course, but we have a very unique year. We don't know how much programming we are going to be able to pull off in fall, especially if things keep trending the way they're trending. So we may have a ton of time and staff to put towards this transition effort, or we may not really have any, but you know, the administrative team and a few other folks, because we just don't know what programming is going to look like in the fall if we can pull much off. But at any rate, we are going to take the next several months, 3 months, 4 months, to really put pencil to paper and pin down the details and in general, I think the transition would be calendar year 2021, where we start, we have our brand, our joint brand platform. We start educating the public, probably at the end of the year, we start educating the public a bit, and then kind of turning over the dial to the new joint platform 1/1 of 2021, the general time.
We're looking like for our winter spring catalog to be a joint programming effort, and hopefully having the staff move on board and getting everybody up to speed on kind of what it looks like now. But yeah, a winter spring format. But you're right, Andrew. We don't know what fall is going to look like for programming at all. And if this last week is any indication, it'll be an interesting one. So,
Right.
yeah.
If I could add to, I don't know how I overlook this because I'm talking to the Parks and Recreation and Forestry Commission. Part of the fact that we're not divesting, the city is not divesting in some of the advising of the platform. We think that, I don't know that we're going to waver from this thought process, but I don't want to promise. We really think that the Recreation Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, can be that body that gives Heather and her team that guidance on programming and, you know, fee structures and you know, certain policy items and things like that. We really think that this group can be that. We already have an aldermanic representative. We already have a member of the school board conveniently right now. So we might have to do something in our ordinances a little more formally to capture that. But we really think that this group can be that advisory body, and you'd really get to, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I don't think you've really had an opportunity to help shape recreation. That's just my sense. It's really more focused on parks. So if that gets anybody excited here, I don't know. But it might be a way to give the group kind of an avenue to go down that's their own, and they can really help the joint platform moving forward. So
Right.
Andrew,
So we were talking, oh, go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Heather.
So we had talked about this because when I had first started in the school district, I had an advisory council, and it kind of dwindled, and we wanted to have an advisory council to our department for a while. This group seems to be, it's already there. Why ask for other community volunteers when we know that they're already stretched? So this is a good group for that. We did talk about the need to have representation from the school board. And in addition, if I'm moving out, like you said, there's some change in the ordinance. If I'm moving out as the school representative, so I'm non-voting, non-ex officionado or whatever it is, ex official, that we have somebody else from the school district that's on this board as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that was the only thing that I was gonna point out, is we thought that maybe the complexity would change a bit, not necessarily another committee altogether, but the complexity of this committee would possibly change.
Well, I think you guys know better than any group, obviously, the offerings in the parks, the limitations of the parks and the facilities where we're going to be doing some of this programming. I mean, it's, you know, it's really a simple concept if you think of it. You know, the city currently provides public works support for its parks, and we provide that support sometimes in furtherance of a recreation program that's going to happen that day. The city is still committed to maintaining its parks. So really it's just who's scheduling the program and what does the program look like? Who's telling the people about it? So in that sense, it's not that much of a leap to really take the central function, administrative function from the city to the school, as long as we maintain representation of you know, the city and the, you know, that advisement, shaping that through this group.
Fantastic, exciting stuff. Any more questions or comments from the members of the commission?
I would just say, I read this fully through a couple times over. I think it's very well thought out. I think it's really the direction we need to go to. So thanks for bringing this forward, and you know, I'm all on board.
Thank you.
Ann or Adam, you have any, or Steve? You guys there?
It's a really exciting opportunity. I think I'm all on board. You know, and I think, as was said many times, it kind of brings us more in line with other communities in the area too. So any way to improve the programming, I think is a great idea.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to combine them. It seemed like there was some redundancies and duplication of efforts, so it'll be exciting to craft a new group and look forward to being a part of it.
Great. Well, Andrew,
I,
thanks so. Oh, sorry, Steve.
w-
Yeah, sorry.
I was
Go ahead.
I was talking, but I discovered that I was muted. So,
Oh.
so no, I think it's a great idea. It's one of those things that you kind of look at and go, man, it's something you could have done a while ago. So, well, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, just for a historical reference, why was it set up the way it was originally?
So originally, and I can speak to a little bit of it, but in the past, the city had been doing the recreational programming in the parks. And 15, 20 years ago, the school district started doing before and after school care for students. And it just continued to expand from that. And then the school district had wanted to take over the responsibility of scheduling their facilities rather than the city scheduling the activities in the facility and then not using them, community rental opportunities. And so the school district said, okay, we'd like to focus on school age programming in our facilities. And so that's kind of where it evolved from. And so that's where the duplications started to come in. We ran we took the recreational programming for like basketball into the school district and aquatic programming because the city was programming in our facilities. And there wasn't strict policies of use. And I think it just kind of got loose. So the school district took that back and then there became more duplication. Because the city continued to offer programs for school-aged children, that's where the duplication started to come in.
No, thank you, Heather. That makes sense.
You know, the other thing that we had thought about heading, you know, kind of as alternatives, looking at succession planning, you know, we had talked about the city continuing to maintain its, you know, continuing to maintain all but the school age programming. So we would focus in on preschool and then adult education and senior recreation, excuse me. But what we really thought was, I mean, I think you don't get, sorry, my neighbor is mowing his lawn in the pouring rain here almost. I don't think you avoid the community confusion that way. And we've had a lot of, you know, we get people calling us about after school programs and basketball and t-ball or whatever, and vice versa. You know, they get calls about our programs there. So, yeah. I mean, that's pretty telltale sign that in the end, people aren't going to care because they're right. calling around to see who they need to talk to just because they want the service. So they don't really care who they end up with. So I think that, you know, that's a telltale sign that, you know, and again, to finish that thought, you know, this doesn't preclude the city from doing something for seniors in the library. You know, we might want to still offer, you know, financial literacy planning or something for adults or whatever. You know, I can't think of a good example right now, but we can still kind of embellish upon or, you know, complement those things too. I'm sure that'd be fine.
Absolutely. I mean, the programming the library is not part of this proposal, right? No. The library has its own council and its own committees and its own programming, its own facility. It's pretty clear where those events are going to happen. I hope that doesn't get fuzzy. Right now, I don't feel like it's fuzzy.
And we're obviously statutorily obligated to have. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying if it weren't.
They make us. They make us do it.
We do have a library board that level 30. We have to have one, and know that we may very well coordinate and say, hey, you can have that recreation programming in the multi-purpose room. I mean, yeah, we will do that. But we will not try to cross those circuits. No, not at all.
I think that there's an opportunity for the school district and the library to work a little bit more closely then too, with like timing and calendar of things and knowing what's happening too. So.
Sure.
Cool.
So to close this out, I would offer to you that we can check back in with you, you know, when we get something a little more concrete and take some more input and take some more questions as this comes together a little more, when it goes from really conceptual to a little more substantive. And I don't know exactly when that will be right now, but we'll be happy to come back and give you progress updates as we're talking and you know, check in and see if you have any questions or input on, you know, the more detailed proposal as it's coming together.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that my one ask is along those lines, and that's just that, you know, I feel like one of the untapped resources of this committee is our ability to be the ambassadors of things going on. And if we're not being included in communications, it's hard for us to evangelize about the information, you know. So just keep us up to date so that when community members come to us and say, oh, you're on the Parks Committee, what's going on? Like, we're not like, nothing, you know. No, don't know.
Sounds good.
That'd be great.
Sounds good.
Thank you. All right.
Andrew.
Thanks again for being here, Andrew. Thanks for taking the time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. I think that wraps up new business item A. Let's go on to new business item B, informational staff reports.
Okay, so this is short and sweet. Obviously, with the changes that are going on, it's really kind of had us working in a different workflow. It's been interesting the last 2 months again. So I just briefly in the staff report, we're talking about, obviously Mary Jane is retired and her last day will be a little bit later on in July. And then we also had a unexpected retirement of our forester, Rebecca Lane. So she left us in the beginning of June. As of today, we do not intend on filling her position in 2020, and then they will reevaluate again in 2021. Project updates, we have Avonshine Skate Park. We have been waiting on the bid package to come. We're still waiting on that. The consultant, though, did recommend that we hold off to start the bidding process until fall or late winter in hopes of getting better bid numbers for construction. So we are still anticipating to get that bid package in the next couple of weeks. We did just send out survey crews to take care of a couple of lingering questions they had before they could finalize that. Another project that we were working on was Chapel Hills park planting. My understanding is Rebecca completed that right prior to her retirement, so that we're in good shape with that. Riverton Park and Manor Marquette playground replacement program. The final design work was completed back in May. Both play structures are anticipated to be installed sometime in the fall. And I don't know if, Jeff, if you want to say anything else regarding the park, the playground replacement.
Yeah, they're slated to begin replacement like the last week in September, both of them.
Okay. And then for the other projects, we are still just plugging along. It's in progress for the commission policies and guidelines. We'll, I guess, be waiting a little bit longer to see how this the change in recreation will play out, because that will also make some changes in the policies and guidelines that we were already starting to put into place. The five-year capital improvement plan for parks. Ted, do you have anything that you'd like to update on that? Is Ted no longer with us? I know we've got some big storms rolling through here right now.
He's there. I think he's on mute.
I don't know. Maybe he can't hear us.
I think he's trying to unmute. I see him hitting some buttons.
Okay.
Here we go.
Ted, do you have any updates on the 5-year capital improvements plan? Perhaps he's having some IT issues. And then the Parks and Open Space Plan update, we're still working on that too. And so that's it for the staff report. So on to our next topic.
Well, can we, hold,
Sure.
with regard to the project updates on Riverton Park and Manor Marquette Playground Replacement Project,
Sure.
it says the final design work was completed in May. Did we ever see those
If anybody
designs?
knows something about this,
We can hear you and see you now,
I don't know.
Ted. Oh, now we can't.
No, you're muted now, but you were unmuted before.
He's saying he can't hear us either.
Oh. Maybe Jeff, could you provide any information on that?
Were the plans ever sent to you?
I don't, yeah.
I've never gotten it.
well, that unmutes me. That means I can talk.
And we can hear you, Ted.
Oh, there he went. Oh, where'd he disappear?
Looks like he may be reconnecting.
In the meeting minutes that we were just reviewing, we talked about, like, that was one of the things we talked about back in January, and there was some relatively important and long discussion about the suggestions we had for those parks, if I'm getting my story straight here.
Yeah.
We talked about the incorporation of at least 80 piece of equipment, and I never, if there were any changes made. And it says that we're going ahead and moving forward with installation, but I think it would be nice if this committee had an opportunity just to see if anything came of that discussion.
Yeah, there will be a ADA swing in the Manor Marquette Park.
Awesome.
The Riverton one, I know we had a back and forth with the county representative, and we had room to put on another bay where we could add another swing, an ADA swing at a future point, because we ran out of money with the install for Riverton. But there is future room to add another bay on, say, the following year, and put an ADA swing in that bay. And the belt swing can also be removed off one of the bays, and the ADA swing can be added in that bay also.
Great, that's good to hear. Is there, I feel like we saw some preliminary designs for what those parks were going to look like. Are there final designs that
Those
could be shared?
actually, Leah, those are pretty much what we ended up going with. The only difference is was just what Jeff was just saying, as far as like which swing gets put in the bay, in the swing set and stuff like that. That was about, we stretched the dollars on that just about as far as we could, all the way to the point where, I mean, Public Works is basically going to be doing all the demolition and most of the grading to get it set up. So, I mean, that plan that you saw, I think the only change to it was, I think if Jeff, help me out here if you could, we had Milwaukee County didn't like one of the items we picked out, and it was, I mean, but it was basically like switching a spinner for a seesaw or something like that. It didn't really change the park, but I'd be happy to send out to the commission what the final was. And it's very similar to what you saw before. Like I was saying, it was a minor item, either one way or another. And I
It would be great.
believe and I believe the Milwaukee County wanted to switch a color scheme, which we really didn't have a whole lot of I don't know, like problem with. I thought all of them looked pretty good, the color schemes.
Ted, could you give me a primer on what the county has, what say the county has in the color of the city's parks equipment?
The fact of the matter is that they do have, because both those parks are rentals. We actually lease those parks from the county.
Okay.
And so they do have quite a bit of say, unfortunately. I actually think we take care of our parks a lot better than the county does. And then it almost kind of irks you a little bit when they kind of stick their nose in it, but they do. And actually the guy who was the one that was working with us on that, I don't think he was doing anything to like agitate us intentionally. I think he had his best interest of the park in mind when he was offering his suggestions. So, I think overall, I think that the final turned out just fine. And like I was saying, I'll be happy to send it out to you guys. It's basically about what you saw before.
Is there some kind of financial reciprocity in the city investing so much money into these parks while we rent the land from the county? Like, does the county give some kind of discount for the money spent on the land, or how does that work?
I mean, basically it's, we want to take care of it because it is our residence, regardless how you look at it, who owns the property. It just so happens that Milwaukee County does. And so, they can ask for different things in that, but it's a long-term lease. It's not like we're getting kicked out of there in next year or something. And, this has been going on for quite some time. I'm not sure exactly when the leases started, but I don't even think the renewal, I think, comes up in 2026. But
there's been a lot of learning going on my part about the relationship between the county parks and the city park systems. Maybe there could be an I know you don't have enough to do, Lori. Just kidding. But it would be awesome. Sometimes the school board has meetings where we, like, the whole point of the meeting is just that we learn about something that is, important to our district. And I think having a more formal opportunity to learn more about some of these relationships, just so that, as a commission, we have a better understanding of when we suggest something, what is entailed in that, and what are the what are the challenges. I think I speak for myself here, but I've learned a lot just in the last year about that, and feel like I could do a better job as a commissioner if I had a clearer understanding up front, so that when we have these discussions, it's not like, well, what do you mean the county owns the land?
Yeah.
So if there's an opportunity for that, I know that you've got tons of time to develop curriculum. Again, kidding.
Well, actually, no, actually, it wouldn't be that difficult because, a lot of this stuff is spelled out in the Parks and Open Space Plan. So, it's a matter of, if we wanted to take, and I believe, we are in the process as a group of updating the Parks and Open Space Plan. So, I guess if we wanted to add a park or something like that and talk about it from on one of the agenda as an agenda item, or something like that, or even pick a piece of the Park and Open Space Plan and discuss it. as part of one of the meetings or something like that, I think that would be a good idea.
I love that idea, Ted.
And actually, Lee, I'm kind of glad you brought this up because we have been in discussions about possibly bringing Melissa Carls, our city attorney, to come and talk to us also about the Parks Commission and to make sure it's just a reminder of the way things should be ran and legalities and policies and whatnot. So we have been in discussions about getting her to show up so we could actually do what you're suggesting and also coordinate with her and have that all together in one session if you guys are interested.
Yeah. I like learning. I think it sounds great.
I think it's good for everybody.
Anybody else have any thoughts on?
No, it's a good idea. I would like to hear it.
Okay.
It'd be
Sorry.
helpful.
Okay. So that I totally derailed Lori's attempt to move to the next item. Is there any other comments or suggestions or questions regarding the informational items presented as the staff report?
And I actually apologize. If somebody was trying to ask me a question earlier, I got kind of knocked off of the thing. There's a storm here and it knocked out our internet. So, I mean, if there was any other questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
I think you answered the question we were trying to ask you, Ted.
Yeah, I think he caught it.
The only thing I have, since we're talking about the old business and the retirements, I didn't know from the parks people, do you guys want to send some type of card to, for Mary Jane's retirement coming up and Rebecca's that just happened in June? Just food for thought.
Great idea, Chris.
That's a great idea,
Yeah, we
Chris.
should totally do
Yeah,
that.
I think we should.
How do we initiate something like that? Chris, you got some cards sitting around? No, like how does that, I don't know how that works.
I'm assuming that our next meeting is actually going to be in person. Then again, that'll be 2 months later. Perhaps I can run around and have my our intern help me get signatures from everybody, and I can purchase 2 cards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome.
If everyone's okay with that. And then I'll just coordinate with you guys to see when you're available.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you,
That
Lori.
sounds like a good plan.
And I'm sure that it's still something that's in the works, but I would love to hear a little bit more about like what the loss of an urban forester means for the city. If we're not replacing her, I know that was like a special thing to have an urban forester, like not every city has that, but like, what does that mean for us as a city to lose our urban forester if we're not planning to fill that role? Does that mean more work for Jeff? What does that mean?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Lee. I was writing Rebecca before this and I thought the same thing. I'm like, what are we going to do without her?
Yeah, I mean, she knew everything about trees and diseases on trees. It was always interesting listening to her on how much knowledge she actually had on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not all that common to have a urban forester on staff on a city of our size. So we were pretty lucky to have it or have her. So that's a really great question. Let's have maybe Ted and Jeff help me dive into how that's going to impact how we operate from here out, at least until the end of the year, until they reevaluate
Well,
whether or not to fill that position.
I mean, we will miss some of the knowledge that Rebecca had, but it's important to know that we do have two certified arborists on our staff. So, I mean, it's they're very knowledgeable about the trees and the different diseases and, when you should plant, when you shouldn't, when, so, it's not like we're just flying blind. But there's been discussion. We will put someone into Rebecca's place. I don't necessarily know if their title will be urban forester or if it will be more of a working foreman forestry person. That's something that we have to decide.
Jeff, does it mean more work for you? Was I kidding or was I being serious?
Well, no, the workload would definitely increase, but I'm also a certified arborist also. So
Oh, awesome. Okay. I was just curious. Thank you for that update, Ted. All right. Well, then, anything else about the staff report? Okay, then let's go ahead and let's call it. Item C, virtual parks tour.
All right, let me get this started here. So we decided to do this after we decided to COVID got the best of us, and we can't do our annual park tour like we normally do. And just to give you guys a little history on why we had the parks tour in the first place, I took a stroll down memory lane and went through some old agendas just to see why did we start this tradition. And I thought it would be a great idea to know why. So we started it back quite a ways here, 2014. And the goal of the original tour was really just to provide you guys an opportunity of the existing conditions. And we've talked about this when we were, sorry, I'm having some issues with my screen here. There we go. There we go. I apologize. So one of our biggest problems always seems to be is what is going on right now out in our parks? What is the conditions? What do we need? What do we not need that we have in place, but it's not really being utilized the way we want to? And so that really was the goal of the original tour, and Jeff Went put the first one on for us. But we've kind of taken a change from that in recent years, and we've celebrated the completed projects that we've done, and also started scouting out the locations of the future projects that we're looking at doing. Like last year, we talked about the Amazon and the Orchard Hills micro parks that are coming up. So the 2020 Parks Tour, we're kind of going back to our roots, and so we're really here tonight to talk about the existing conditions and some of those high priority projects that we still have in purchases that are hoped for by our staff to address some major maintenance issues that are going on. So I just want to first of all say thanks again, Jeff Went. What a great guy. He came out, took pictures for us, and pinpointed some of the major maintenance issues that do need to be addressed. I'm sure Ted can speak on behalf of this, but these are some of the items that you're going to see in the 5-year capital improvements plan that he's putting together. So we have a couple playground replacement projects that we're hoping to do in the next few years. The first one is at Willow Heights Park. This playground was put back installed in 1996, so it's about 25 years old. Basically, it's at the end of its lifespan. The coating is wearing off, the color is faded. Our team has done a really great job trying to keep it maintained as best as they can, but it's getting to the point where it's getting difficult to find parts. And when we do find parts, they have to be retrofitted because they don't make them anymore. So for Willow Heights, we're hoping to buy a little time before we have to make this investment by salvaging the decks that are taken from Riverton Meadows and Manor Marquette replacement projects. So that could buy us a few years. But at the end of the day, we have 2 replacement options to completely solve this issue, which is purchase replacement parts. And again, this would require these parts to be retrofitted at a tune of $20,000, or we can go through the process of just putting in a whole new play structure, which of course would give us a much larger lifespan. And right now we're looking at an estimate of $55,000. So that is Willow Heights. The other one that's in a similar situation is Chapel Hills Park.
Hey, Lori.
Yeah.
I just quick question, because that's actually my park. I didn't realize it was that need of repair, because we all use it, and it seemed like in pretty decent condition to me, but it's great you guys are on all of this. And perhaps this is something I'm not supposed to sneak in on the meeting, so just let me know, but As you know, I reached out to her. I reached out to Lori, you guys, a neighbor friend of mine is interested in getting a volleyball court for Willow Heights. When they redid the pavement not too long ago, like a couple years ago, there was a little square just off of the basketball court that actually would have just been perfect. And I don't know if we thought about it then, but they were hoping to put in a sand volleyball court. So I think she did just send off her letter to you.
Yes.
I don't know, is that something then we can work on getting on a future agenda to review?
Sure. Actually, I already contacted, her name is Nikki,
Yep.
and I asked her to speak at the next September meeting.
Oh, fantastic.
And
Okay.
she gave me some great notes to help put a little staff thing together, just like we did for the baseball. And then we'll have her come and speak on behalf of it. We also have another one that I'm still trying to get confirmation whether or not he'll be able to attend. His name is Josh Mertens, and he wanted to talk to us about expanding some of the pathways in some of our parks.
Oh,
So
great.
those are two things that Nikki will definitely be on the agenda for September. I'm not quite sure about whether or not Josh will be able to join us or not.
Okay, no, great, thanks. And she was saying, so some of our community members, I mean, we'd be willing to chip in for some of this too. And I don't know if that's been done before or how that might work.
There's plenty of communities that are very grateful to have that kind of community sport and willingness to put money towards things. I think that definitely eases the blow of doing these kind of projects.
Okay, good to know.
Would a
And
fundraising effort like that be something that the like who generally would kind of facilitate or administrate a community-based fundraising effort? Would that be just the whoever in the community, or would that end up being something that would have to be in tandem with a city employee?
I'm sure it would have to be somewhat in tandem to some extent. However, we would most likely turn it over to the public with our support and them coordinating a little bit with us. So.
okay, thanks, Leah. That was one of my questions too. So if
Yeah,
we were to read my mind, go ahead.
No,
Leah.
I was just thinking, like, it's sort of like a PTO, right? Like it's like park PTO. It's like parks, or wait, parent. What does that go? Parent.
Yeah.
It could still be PTO, I guess what I'm trying to say. But we don't really have like a Friends of Oak Creek Parks. Maybe that should be a project.
Oh boy. That's a thought though. I know that's what I was thinking, because if we do have people, if we wanted to do a fundraising effort, I didn't know if that needed to be something that was regulated or monitored by the city. Or
I would have to have a bigger conversation with admin, obviously, about the direction with that. I'm sure they've had these offers before, and so they probably have policies in place to help guide that process.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
Wouldn't a fundraiser, somebody could run a fundraiser, and if you'd purchase it, you basically just get donated to the city? Isn't that the way it would technically work? So you'd have your own fundraiser, whatever you'd raise money with well, obviously you'd have to get it, I would believe you'd have to get it approved by the city, that you're, first of all, that they would accept the donation, but then you'd go and raise the money to do it if they would accept it.
I don't know if Chris and Andrew are still, well, Chris is probably with us. Maybe you could answer that question.
Sorry about that. I think it's probably premature to talk about it right now because we don't know what the process even would be, whether we even have one on the books or not. Because if you start doing it, if you have friends of the parks, and we have how many parks in the city, 29 or 38 or something like that. Let's say you just start at Park X. Well, no, that they want their money for Park Y. So we have to kind of find a way for that to happen. And so I think that we'd have to do a lot of exploring right now before we can just jump off and do that. But it doesn't mean it's not worthwhile to think about. It's just a way to, how do you corral it and how do you pool the money? So.
Right.
Yeah. I just want to apologize to everyone. I have a massive storm coming through here and the lightning is pretty impressive. I'm just praying my internet and electricity doesn't get knocked out.
Well, and I'm also flickering on and off too, and I don't know why. And I'm in Oak Creek here, so I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm in
It's
Toast.
storming here though, too.
It's coming
Yeah.
down hard.
So I
Uh,
was just gonna say, if I get knocked off, guys, just so you know, that's where I'm at.
Carry on in your honor.
Okay.
All right, I'll kind of try to move this through quickly. Please feel free to interrupt with any questions. So the other project that is in a similar state is Chapel Hills Park. And of course, we just did the planting initiative there. And it's the same situation. To replace the parts would require retrofitting of it. So it's approximately $18,000, and a new structure in this location is about $52,000. And Jeff, so how much longer do you think we could stretch these structures out?
With salvaging some of those decks and pieces off those other two structures, I think we can get another, probably a couple of years
Okay.
before we have to really look at it hard again.
What's making them old? Because they're plastic pieces. What exactly is
Well, the
old?
UV light will break down the plastic pieces, like you see that slide and that hood that was red at one time, and that slide was dark blue. Ultraviolet light breaks that down after a number of years. And then over years, two things are looked at and they become out of safety compliant, like the swing beams are a lot thicker now. So those ones are actually grandfathered that we have on there right now, but anything that you do to the structure from now on has to be brought up to today's safety standards.
Got it. Okay.
Like all the decking is peeling off, all the rubber coating on that, and all the handrails are all splitting open.
I'm gonna have to go take a closer look. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, you'll get a really good look at what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So another one of the projects that we know that staff is going to need eventually due to maintenance issues is a tractor replacement. So we do have two tractors. The one that we're looking to replace is from 1998, so 22 years old. And between the two tractors, every snowfall, it has to clear 70 miles of path, bus stops and crosswalks. So as you can imagine, it really takes a toll on these machines after 20 years. So the biggest problem is that these occasionally do break down, and then our DPW is stranded with just one, and still trying to cover that many mileage or that much mileage. So the total cost per tractor with all the necessary attachments that we would require or we need is $125,000. So I think right now we're just getting by continually fixing it. But we're going to get to that point eventually where we're not going to be able to keep doing that. So,
Hey, Lori, real quick question on Chapel Hills.
yeah.
Did that any of that start on the replacement of anything? I saw the plantings were happening there.
Right.
Have you done anything with replacement yet, or no? You're just looking at costs right now?
We're just looking at cost.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And the whole point of this tour, and if I didn't make it clear enough, was just to let you guys know that these projects are going to have to be on the horizon due to the end of the lifespan of these items. So we really can't, we can put a Band-Aid on it for a short time, but we're going to have to eventually face the reality that they're going to have to be addressed.
Yes.
So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So one of the disappointing projects that I'm kind of shocked that came up on our plate is the Lake Vista Park replacement of the rubber safety surfacing. So when the installation occurred, it wasn't done correctly, and there wasn't drain tiles put in around the edges of the surface. And so when we get a tremendous amount of rain, it's basically causing the surface to start failing. And Jeff could probably explain a little bit more of the mechanics behind it, but it's causing holes in the surfacing. The water will start collecting on it, and eventually this is just going to get worn down. I know staff is trying to figure out a way that they can do some of the work themselves to reduce the cost. But when we did go and reach out to a contractor, they quoted us $24,000 to add the drain tiles and replace it. So
I got a question. It was installed incorrectly, or isn't there a warranty issue or something we can go back at whoever put that in? If it wasn't put in correctly?
Oh, they never had in the specs to put in drain tile when they put that
Oh,
park in.
oh, they didn't? Okay.
And it wasn't, yeah,
So what we're saying, the design wasn't correct, not necessarily.
right. And it wasn't shared with anybody to look at.
I gotcha. All right.
And this is the third kick at the can, right? Because didn't we have to go back and add the rubber after we
Right,
had,
right. In the zip line and in the sand area, that was taken out and the rubber was put in and drain tile was put in those areas.
got it. Okay, thanks, Jeff.
So, and then we've got our next project that we know desperately needs to get done is the softball field lighting replacement at Shepherd Hills Park. So the lights and poles there are approximately 45 years old. We've already had one issue that I'm sure Jeff can talk a little bit more about, but where the bracket for the lighting actually came off and had to be replaced. But essentially, we do know we need to move forward and replace all the poles and add LED lighting, which then would help reduce some of the light that's being emitted out into the neighborhood. That would definitely make them happier. And then also we know that we need to get a new outfield fence to enclose in the field. And the total cost of this project is $275,000. That's a big chunk of change. I think we're just trying to bide our time until we absolutely have to do it.
And that's if the city wants to keep a lighted field, you know, if
Yeah.
they don't want lights, then these are just going to have to come down probably in the near future.
And right now, those light posts are actually in the field of play. So if we did redo this project, those lights would be set further back outside the fence line.
Yeah, just the 4 outfield lights, Lori, are in the field of play.
Yeah.
How many do you think you got? A year on those? 2 years on those? What do you think, Jeff?
It's hard to say. 5 years ago is when the bracket broke on that one, and there's 8 poles out there now.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody about it to see if we could use the old poles with new light fixtures, and they said they wouldn't do that on anything over 30 years old.
Okay.
So I mean, they don't look like they're going to tip over anytime soon. They're thick poles, but they're all tilted.
Yeah.
Too many of them are straight anymore. They're cracked. I see bees going in and making, you know, I get complaints about bees coming and going from the poles from the teams using it.
Okay.
Jeff, is that mainly like softball at night? I know they used to play kickball on that field at night.
The only one that uses it right now is Rec League for the lighted field, but I mean it's been rented almost every night from storm teams. There's base pegs in there, 60 foot, 65 foot, and 70 foot. So any team that can utilize those base pegs have been rented out pretty much this year. Almost every night it's been being rented. So with the lights there, you could almost run 2 games a night and charge a little bit more to play under the lights at the shorter baseball fields. Maybe that would help.
Yeah, some revenue.
Any other questions about the softball field lighting? Nope. Okay. And then one of the last one. Yep. Path replacement at Johnstone Park. So the park is leased from Milwaukee County and then maintained by Oak Creek. Seems to be a trend. The path is located too low to the existing grade and is causing it to collect water. And as that water collects, it's a mess for people to walk through. And in the wintertime, it's really dangerous for people to be walking on it. And also it's hard for us to get our plows through. So the approximate cost of this is about $10,000 to $20,000. And this park is also not the only park that is unfortunately stuck in this position too. And I know Jeff said that he had a bit of a list of other parks that we would have to also consider this type of replacement. I don't know if Jeff wants to name a couple of those parks, but
Well, this is the worst one. The other ones we got a little time on, but this one, something should be looked at because in the wintertime, it's treacherous to walk through there. I mean,
and it's also causing parts of it to crack and deteriorate. So
So I know in years past, like when the engineering department had a asphalt job somewhere in the area, they'd look at putting a job like this onto that asphalt project and save a little money. I don't know if anything is in the works with any road repair anywhere.
Okay.
Look at.
All right, well, that was the virtual tour of our most expensive projects that we know we have potentially coming up. But I don't know if there's any other projects, Jeff, that you want to mention that we didn't cover.
Those are the main ones that are out there right now. I mean, every year there'll be more. I just can't.
Sadly, always more.
I know the Lake Vista is going to need some restaining down there in the next year or so. And that building, I got a cost of about $10,000 to restain that building down there, just the main pavilion and all the wood around it.
Yeah. How many years is that already? It's already like going on 3 years, 4 years for Lake Vista.
Yeah, I think it's 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. $10,000 every 3 to 5 years is. Are we looking at some other type of product maybe?
He said if you go a little darker, you can get a little more time on the stuff. So that might be something to look at.
Okay.
All right, well, if anyone else has any questions or comments, I'd like to open the floor for it.
This was a nice tour. I appreciated going through the projects like this. I can say like the Johnston Park, the one that's over by Cedar Hills. Our students use it for a walking path and for girls on the run, and it really does get a lot of like walking use over there. So that would be wonderful for obviously the school kids that are over there, because it does get a lot of use that way too.
All right, well, hearing no more comments.
Okay, yeah, all right. Well, if there's nothing further from anybody, then I guess I will open the floor for a motion to adjourn.
Guzikowski makes a motion to adjourn.
Steve Balcho second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? No, great. Thank you so much, everyone.
7:55.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
All right, bye.
All right,
Thanks,
see ya.
everybody.